Random House Audio presents The Book of Daniel by E.L. Doctorow. Read for you by Mark Deakins. Then a herald cried aloud, "To you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worshippeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. Therefore at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the cornet, flute, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, all the people, the nations, and the languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up." Daniel chapter 3, verse 4. With music strong I come, with my cornets and my drums. I play not marches for accepted visitors only. I play marches for conquered and slain persons. Walt Whitman, Song of Myself. America, I've given you all, and now I'm nothing. I can't stand my own mind. America, when will we end the human war? Go fuck yourself with your atom bomb. Allen Ginsberg, America. Book 1, Memorial Day. On Memorial Day in 1967, Daniel Lewin thumbed his way from New York to Worcester, Massachusetts, in just under 5 hours. With him was his young wife, Phyllis, and their 8-month-old son, Paul, whom Daniel carried in a sling chair strapped to his shoulders like a pack. The day was hot and overcast with a threat of rain, and the early morning traffic was the early morning traffic was light, but not many drivers could pass them without wondering who they were and where they were going. This is a thin-line felt-tip marker, black. This is Composition Notebook 79C, made in USA by Long Island Paper Products, Inc. This is Daniel trying one of the dark coves of the browsing room. Books for browsing are on the shelves. I sit at a table with a floor lamp at my shoulder. Outside this paneled room with its book-lined alcoves is the periodical room. The periodical room is filled with newspapers on sticks, magazines from round the world, and the droppings of learned societies. Down the hall is the main reading room and the entrance to the stacks. On the floors above are the special collections of the various school libraries, including the library school library. Downstairs, there is even a branch of the public library. I feel encouraged to go on. Daniel, a tall young man of 25, wore his curly hair long. Steel-rimmed spectacles and a full mustache, brown like his hair, made him look, if not older than he was, then more self-possessed and opinionated. Let's face it, he looked cool. Deliberately cool. In fact, nothing about his appearance was accidental. If he'd lived in the 1930s and came on this way, he would be a young commie. A cafeteria commie. He was dressed in a blue prison jacket and dungarees. His Brooklyn-born wife was 19, with long, straight, natural blonde hair worn this day in braids. She came to his shoulder. She wore flower bell-bottoms and a khaki rain poncho and carried a small bag with things for the baby. As a matter of principle, she liked to talk to strangers and make them unafraid, and although Daniel hadn't wanted her to come along, he was glad he relented. The rides came quickly. She talked for him while he stared out the window. Cars, he noticed, were very big and wide and soft. The people who drove them were not fearful but patronizing. They were inquisitive and obviously entertained to be driving these young American kids who probably smoked marijuana even though they had a baby. At about 1 o'clock, they were let off at Route 9 in Worcester, a mile or so from their destination. They were looking up a long, steep hill. At the crest of the hill, too far away to see, were the gates of Worcester State Hospital. Daniel had never been here, but his father's directions were precise. Daniel's father was a law professor at Boston College, 40 miles to the east. He didn't like my marrying Phyllis. Neither did my mother, but of course they wouldn't say anything. Enlightened liberals are like that. Phyllis, a freshman dropout, has nothing for them. Liberals are like that too. They confuse character with education. They don't believe we'll live to be beautiful old people with strength in one another. Perhaps they sniff the strong, erotic content of my marriage and find it distasteful. Phyllis is the kind of awkward girl with heavy thighs and heavy tits and slim, lovely face whose ancestral mothers must have been bred in harems. The kind of unathletic, helpless breeder to appeal to caliphs. The kind of sand dune that was made to be kicked around. Perhaps they are afraid I kick her around. Daniel considered taking a city bus to the top of the hill, but the traffic was bumper to bumper, and they could almost outpace it by walking. With Phyllis beside him, her hand lightly on his arm, and with his thumbs hooked under the chest straps of the baby rig, he trudged up the hill. The road was jammed in both directions, and a blue haze of exhaust drifted through the heavy air. Daniel imagined it curling around his ankles, his waist, and finally his throat. A stone wall ran beside them, separating the sidewalk from the hospital grounds. On the downhill side of the street were gas stations, dry cleaning drive-ins, car washes, package stores, pizza parlors. American flags were everywhere. As they approached the top of the hill, they saw a stone kiosk in which a number of people waited for the bus. A bus arrived. It discharged its passengers, closed its doors with a hiss, and disappeared over the crest of the hill. Not one of the people waiting at the bus stop had attempted to board. One woman wore a sweater that was too small, a long, loose skirt, white sweat socks, and house slippers. One man was in his undershirt. Another man wore shoes with the toes cut out, a soiled blue serge jacket, and brown pants. There was something wrong with these people. They made faces. A mouth smiled at nothing and unsmiled, smiled and unsmiled. A head shook in vehement denial. Most of them carried brown paper bags rolled tight against their stomachs. They seemed to hold their life in those bags. Daniel took Phyllis's arm. As they reached the bus stop, the weird people dispersed and flowed around them like pigeons scuttling out of their way, flowing around them and reforming behind them, stirring restlessly in the kiosk in the wake of their passing. Except for one man. One man, the one in the undershirt, ran ahead of them, looking back over his shoulder as they turned into the hospital grounds. He ran ahead of them waving his arm windmill fashion, as if trying to rid himself of the rolled-up paper bag locked in his fist. Beyond him, down the tree-lined road, the fumy air clearing in the trees, was the turreted yellow brick State Hospital, Worcester, a public facility for the mentally ill. "So that's where they're going." From the Dartmouth Bible. Daniel, a beacon of faith in a time of persecution. Few books of the Old Testament have been so full of enigmas as the book of Daniel. Though it contains some of the most familiar stories of the Bible, 9 of its 12 chapters record weird dreams and visions which have baffled readers for centuries. The way to start may be the night before, Memorial Day Eve, when the phone rang. With Daniel and his child bride at sex in their 115th Street den. The music of the Stones pounds the air like the amplified pulse of my erection, and I have finally got her on all fours, hanging there from her youth and shame, her fallen blonde hair over her eyes, tears sliding like love beads down the long blonde hairs of her straight hair. The phone is about to ring. The thing about Phyllis is that when she's stoned, all her inhibitions come out. She gets all tight and vulnerable, and our lovemaking degrades her. Phyllis grew up in an apartment in Brooklyn, and her flower life is adopted. It is a principle. Her love of peace is a principle. Her long hair, her love for me, all principles. Political decisions. She smokes dope on principle, and that's where I have her. All her instinctive, unprincipled beliefs rise to the surface, and her knees lock together. She becomes a sex martyr,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?